Welcome back to Outside Views, where we never shy away from the hard truth, and today the hard truth is simple. Brexit was a catastrophic self-inflicted wound, and the time for denial is over. And you know that I think it was a terrible mistake, and I stand by that. And for years, the political class in the UK across the spectrum treated the B word like a cursed relic, acknowledged only in whispers, afraid that speaking its name would unleash some forgotten electoral demon. But now, finally, we are seeing a shift, an overdue moment of honesty, where the government is beginning to explicitly acknowledge the profound economic damage inflicted by leaving the European Union. This is a necessary first step, but let me be clear, acknowledging the harm is easy, but fixing it is the real test of courage and leadership. And the hard-fought economic reality, which has been staring us all in the face, is now too large to ignore, and the official figures are staggering. The independent watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR, has been consistent, clear, and utterly unforgiving in its analysis. Leaving the EU, even with a negotiated trade and cooperation agreement, is projected to reduce the size of the UK economy by a massive 4% in the long run. That was the old one, and now we're hearing much high numbers of at least 8%. But let's stick with the initial 4%, because 4% of a major G7 economy is not some abstract academic projection. It's a multi-billion pound tax on the nation's potential, translating directly into lost opportunities, higher costs, and a tangible impact on the lives of every single person. And alongside this, the OBR forecasts a cut in trade intensity, that's the openness of the economy, by roughly 15%. Trade intensity is a measure of how integrated a country is with the global economy, and the data confirms this chilling prognosis. And while trade in services has held up better, the growth in UK goods trade has fallen well behind the rest of the G7 since the pandemic, and overall trade intensity has failed to recover in line with comparable advanced economies. And this decline isn't just a number, it's the direct consequence of new customs procedures, regulatory divergence, and the administrative burden or paperwork that has forced many small and medium-sized businesses to simply give up on exporting to the continent. The public has been ahead of the politicians for a long time. They can see the costs in their shops, their bills, their jobs, and the shrinking opportunities for their children. And this new political honesty, while welcomed, is coming with an air of calculated cynicism. When the Chancellor prepared for the budget that's out now, it's clear that Brexit is being laid out as a convenient political villain to share the blame for the tough and unpopular choices that have been announced now. And rightly so. If you are going to talk about the damage, you must be honest about where the responsibility lies. But it's simply not acceptable to acknowledge the harm without simultaneously offering a bold, ambitious roadmap to undo as much of it as you possibly can. And the current government's reset with the EU, which saw the first UK-EU summit last May, is a step forward, a sign of a new strategic partnership built on pragmatism. But it's a tentative, agonizingly slow step and a mere fine-tuning of a badly broken mechanism, not the economic transformation that is needed. The progress being made is focused on low-hanging fruit, the bare minimum to mitigate the most visible friction, and it must be done faster, but it's rather slowing down now. An eventual sanitary and phytosanitary or veterinary agreement is essential. It would remove much of the costly paperwork and physical checks associated with trading agri-food, which is one of the industry's greatest demands. Returning to the EU's internal electricity market would replace the current wildly inefficient trading systems that are costing consumers hundreds of millions of pounds every year. And relinking the UK's carbon trading system back to the EU's would eliminate the need for punishing carbon border taxes on goods, which is a financial headache that is looming over the horizon, in just a few weeks, by the way. And all these sectoral steps are technically welcome, but they only tackle the symptoms of economic separation, not the underlying disease. They are incremental fixes designed to protect political red lines. You know this, no return to the single market, the customs union or freedom of movement, while leaving the fundamental damage in place. And my view is that the political class must stop being paralyzed by fear of the Reform Party or by those still fighting the lost battles of 2016. The ruthless pragmatism that the government claims to embody must now be applied with genuine boldness, not just timid incrementalism. The British need a clear staged strategy to rebuild the UK's relationship with Europe, moving from merely managing the disaster to actively reversing it as much as they can. First, these annual UK-EU summits must stop being just photo opportunities. They must be concrete milestones, each one delivering specific, measurable progress on market access and sector-by-sector reintegration. And I don't mean cherry-picking here. The British will not and never get cherry-picking again. And no opt-outs and whatever. The government must be thinking not just about the next summit, but about the one after that and the one after that, and each one taking them closer to the stability and prosperity they lost. And second, the benefits of this reset must be visible and tangible to the British public, not just figures on an OBR chart. People need to see household energy bills falling. They need to see jobs being created in manufacturing and trade. And they need to see cultural life and professional careers no longer held back by suffocating red tape. And unless the gains are felt on the kitchen table and in the local community, any policy, however sensible, will lack the essential public legitimacy to sustain it. And third, and this is the most critical point that the government is currently too scared to touch, they must recognize that the most powerful transformational changes lie deeper than any incremental fix. For truly fixing the 4% or higher economic deficit, the UK must find a way to rebuild deep access to the single market, and not just for goods. The services and people aspects are just as important, if not more so, for the UK economy. And you need smoother mechanisms for professionals, artists, musicians, and touring performers to move and work freely again. But all of this comes at a price. And the damage to the financial services sector, where the EU now accounts for a smaller share of exports, and the challenges faced by universities and researchers are not solved by a simple veterinary agreement. These human and economic links are the lifeblood of a modern, successful economy, and they must find a way to re-establish them. And this means working towards a customs union style arrangement with the EU, and I don't mean being a member of the customs union. I mean to be in a customs union with the EU, like Turkey, for example, and not being in the customs union. But that still would achieve the effect of a customs union without necessarily rejoining the existing body, drastically reducing the bureaucratic friction that is suffocating trade. It means negotiating for an enhanced youth mobility scheme that, while not a return to the old-style freedom of movement, allows young people to again live, study and work across the continent with minimal bureaucratic hurdles, revitalizing the cultural and intellectual exchange that Brexit tragically cut off. This is not about rejoining the EU tomorrow. It's about facing the reality that the current arrangement is causing permanent structural damage and having the courage to make the hard choice to fix it. And the government knows the score. The OBR has laid out the damage, and now it must find the courage to act on the truth and be bolder than it ever has been. And that is the hard truth on Brexit. And if you want to see another video right now, well, I'm trying to film even more for you, although it's not my Brexit filming day. That's long past behind us, but you know, the man flu is still there. The next one is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.